Some might say evil, driving criminals to lie, steal, and even murder.
The existing banking system extracts enormous value from society.
No.
On Halloween 2008, someone using the name Satoshi Nakamoto posted on a cryptography mailing list. I've been working on a new electronic cash system that's fully peer-to-peer with no trusted third party. The post contained a link to a white paper in which Satoshi proposed a new type of payment system for the internet. It described a protocol that used peer-to-peer networking, proof of work, and public key cryptography. For years, computer scientists had been experimenting with these technologies to create digital money. But Satoshi discovered a way to combine them that had never been done before. In doing so, he invented Bitcoin. There are no records of Nakamoto's existence prior to the creation of Bitcoin. On his profile page, he claimed to be a 34-year-old man living in Japan. Although Satoshi Nakamoto is a Japanese name, he wrote in perfect English when communicating online and went through great lengths to keep his identity unknown. Nonetheless, programmers and cryptographers all across the world recognized the brilliance of Satoshi's design and began collaborating with him to further develop Bitcoin.
What is Bitcoin? It's the first decentralized digital currency. Bitcoins are basically digital coins you can send through the internet. Bitcoin is based on a blockchain network secured by computers called miners who use software to verify transactions and are rewarded fractions of Bitcoins. This transparent public ledger, called the blockchain, is where all activity is logged for anyone to verify. The value of Bitcoin is in this blockchain, which decentralizes information and puts data ownership back with the people that own it, removing the middleman, such as banks, companies, and governments.
Bitcoin is a revolutionary technology that enables a new way to send payments over the internet. You can think of it as an open accounting system, where thousands of computers all over the world work together to track ownership of digital tokens called bitcoins. When you send someone bitcoins, the transaction is broadcast to the entire network. After it's verified, it's recorded in a public ledger called the blockchain. The blockchain contains a record of every Bitcoin transaction that has occurred since the system began, and it's shared and maintained on the network, so everyone keeps the books, so to speak. Most currencies are issued by a central authority that controls the money supply. Bitcoin is a peer-to-peer system, so there is no central authority. Instead, Bitcoins are issued to users who help process transactions in the network. This is known as Bitcoin mining. Bitcoin miners are specialized computers that do the work required to verify and record transactions in the blockchain. As a reward for their work, the miners earn Bitcoins, and this is how new Bitcoins are released into circulation. The system is programmed so that only 21 million Bitcoins will ever exist, and as time goes by, the mining reward decreases. The result is a predictable supply that's governed by scarcity, making Bitcoin somewhat like a digital gold. It's the first currency of the internet, and everyone is free to use it. With Bitcoin, you can send any amount of money to anyone, anywhere in the world, as easily as sending an email. In October of 2009, the first exchange rate was published, listing the value of 1,309 Bitcoins at $1. Bitcoins were cheap, and through the following year, they continued to trade for fractions of a cent. In the spring of 2010, a Florida man named Laszlo decided to try using his Bitcoins to purchase something. He offered 10,000 Bitcoins to anyone who would buy him pizza. A man in London accepted and placed a long-distance phone call, ordering him 2 pizzas from Papa John's. This is generally acknowledged as the first Bitcoin transaction for a tangible good.
Recently, countries like Japan and Australia have recognized Bitcoin as an official currency. And China has the highest global trading volume. The world's largest investment firms and merchant banks are using blockchain technology to create more transparency and reduce transaction costs.
This is what a Bitcoin address looks like. Think of this long string of characters as an account number where your Bitcoins are stored. When you send or receive Bitcoins, they are sent to these addresses. The addresses are long and hard to remember, so using a phone to scan a QR code is a fast and easy way to read them. Another good thing to know is that Bitcoins can be broken down to 8 decimal places. This means that you can send fractions of a Bitcoin, so any amount of money can be represented. With Bitcoin, every transaction is public. Everyone can see the amount that's being sent without necessarily knowing the identity of the sender. Trading volume started to pick up. By November 2010, already 4 million Bitcoins had been mined, and the exchange price briefly spiked to 50 cents per coin. The market awoke, and Bitcoin was starting to look like it might have real potential as a currency.
Some basics. The web can be defined into 3 categories. First, there's the surface web, and that's everything that's open and available. Basically, everything that can be found through a Google search. Following this is the deep web. This is the portion of the internet that's hidden from conventional search engines, and it contains unindexed websites. Here, you can find personal information like your payroll and medical records, or a corporation's private data. And finally, there's the dark web. Here, sites are intentionally hidden from search engines. Sites in the dark web can only be accessed through special browsers which use masked IP addresses to hide the identity of the visitors. Set in motion the progression to the modern internet. But ever since there has been the internet, or any form of internet, people have used it for a technology called Tor was created. Tor stands for the Onion Router and is a browser which allows users to exchange information anonymously online. Peer-to-peer networks like Tor are the backbone of the dark web. For the dark web to exist, it needs anonymity. Tor manages this by hiding the identity of the user by bouncing the connection through 3 different servers around the world, adding a layer of encryption each time, hence the name Onion. This was followed by other marketplaces, including fraud sites and Bitcoin sites, which are mainly used for money laundering. Okay, so let's take a deeper dive and take an interesting look at the deep and dark web. Firstly, it's huge and its size is growing rapidly. A 2001 study done by the University of California discovered that the dark web had 7.5 petabytes or 7,500 gigabytes of information. In just 2 years, this number increased to over 91,000 petabytes. Today, combined, the deep and dark web is over 96% of the entire web. One of the most infamous sites on the dark web is the marketplace Silk Road. The name comes from an ancient network of trade routes which connected Europe, parts of Africa, Asia, and the Middle East. The name was borrowed by Ross Ulbricht in 2011 when he set up the first Silk Road marketplace under the alias Dread Pirate Roberts. Here, many things can be purchased with Bitcoin, but mostly illicit drugs and fraudulent documentation such as passports. Being mostly anonymous, Bitcoin, among other cryptocurrencies, was instrumental in allowing Silk Road and any anonymous marketplace to run. Approximately 170,000 Bitcoins were seized by the US government from Silk Road and Ulbricht's personal account. At the time, this was roughly $100 million US. If sold at the peak of Bitcoin's price in 2017, it would be worth approximately $2.8 billion US.
We did a global survey of drug users and we had over 20,000 people respond to that. And on Silk Road, it certainly hasn't stopped the trading of illicit drugs online.
A lot of the ledger.
Who was outraged and publicly called for a crackdown on the site.
Heroin, opium, cannabis, ecstasy, psychedelics, stimulants. It's unbelievable.
Throughout all this, the exchange price continued to climb. By February of 2011, Bitcoin reached parity with the US dollar, sparking an influx of new users and speculators. By June, the price had soared to a peak of $31,